Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Preston Williams, and today I will be presenting on CouchDB. For the launch year and date, it was released on April 2005. First, let's start off talking about the history and background. APAC CouchDB is an open source NoSQL document database. It was originally created by Damien Katz in 2005. And within its creation, there was a project that was made. So in 2008, the project became part of the APAC Software Foundation, where it continues to be maintained as an open source project. CouchDB was designed to make data storage simple, so a little bit easier for people to use, reliable, easy to fall back on without worrying about it messing up, and easy to synchronize across multiple devices, meaning that multiple people would be able to go from one device to another, carrying their information over. And with it being reliable, they don't have to worry about it losing any data. And with it being simple, it's very easy for people to get used to it. Next, let's go into the customer and industry focus. First, its main customer are software developers, web application developers, mobile application developers, healthcare organizations, financial services, retail and e-commerce businesses, government agencies, as well as any organization needing scalable document-based data storage. So it's not only used for one type of audience like software developers or web application developers. It's also used in other areas such as healthcare organizations, retail, e-commerce businesses, government agencies. It's something that's used well. It's very well rounded. And like previously stated, since it's reliable and simple, it's easy for people to just get a grasp of it. Next, let's go into what type of database it is. So that follows the initial question, which is why is it a distributed database? And it's a distributed database because data can be replicated across multiple servers. It supports synchronization between databases. So like previously said, it can move from one to another. It is designed for high availability and fault tolerance. And lastly, it allows applications to continue working even if one server goes offline, which all of these explain why it is a distributed database. Next, let's have the question of what type of database model it is. And the answer to that question is it is a non-relational database model. And with a non-relational database model, this means that it stores information as JSON documents instead of tables. Documents can have different fields and structures. Flexible schema allows updates without redesigning the database. And lastly, it is ideal for application with changing data requirements. So with all of these, it makes it a non-relational database instead of a relational. Next is the question of how accessible is it? And well, it can be installed on company servers. It can also be hosted in cloud environments such as AWS, Microsoft Azure, or IBM Cloud. It is accessible remotely through HTTP or REST APIs, and it works across Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. So with it being accessible within all of these, it just goes back to how reliable it is, how easy it is to use, because no one would want a database that they can only use on Mac, because with everybody switching between, especially with the economy, everybody's getting different kinds of technology. So if somebody has a Mac and somebody has a Windows, they shouldn't have to worry about, oh, they need one computer to be able to use this database. But with CouchDB, they're able to use a variety amount of technologies and be able to access the same amount of things, which is why this is such a great thing for a database, because different businesses are using different devices. But there's always a little catch to it, whether it comes with pricing or, like I said, with what it can be used on. So let's go into pricing in particular. Well, with CouchDB, it is a open source and free to download. There are no licensing fees. Organizations only pay for hosting, cloud services, maintenance, or enterprise support if needed. And the enterprise support is available from third-party providers. So it depends on what they want to use it for, but for the most part, the licensing, and it's pretty free. It's a open source and it's free to download. Next, let's go to the data storage. So first, it stores data as JSON documents. It supports very large databases, which is good because a lot of businesses some may need smaller ones, some may need bigger ones. So with there not being a max too small of a max capacity, and with it being so large, it allows for the bigger businesses to be able to switch to Couch if they need it. It's automatic replication. It has automatic replication and synchronization. It uses append-only storage for improved reliability. It includes built-in version control to prevent data conflicts, and it handles millions of documents efficiently. Next, let's go into the data access language. So unlike a lot of different database management systems that may be SQL, Couch is actually a NoSQL data access language, meaning that it uses HTTP REST APIs. It stores data in JSON format. It supports JavaScript for MapReduce queries. And like I said before, it does not use the traditional SQL like many other database management systems. Next, we'll go into usability. So first, it is easy to install and configure, which goes back to how simple this database is. It uses simple RESTful API, which makes application development easier. So if a large business needs to have a lot of workers, if they want to use this database system, a lot of them can adapt to it pretty easy and make the development a much faster and easier process. It is user-friendly for developers familiar with JSON. So even though it is already easier, it's going to be way easier if you already are familiar with some of the things that it uses, for example, JSON. And it's minimal administration compared to many relational databases, which goes back to how more simple it is. Next, we'll go into some additional features. So first, it has automatic replication, offline synchronization, RESTful HTTP API, JSON document storage, multi-version concurrency control, also known as MVCC, built-in security and authentication, fault tolerance, full text search through additional tools, and has easy scalability. And with all of these, it makes it a way easier process for these other users to be able to use this database. But some may ask, okay, well, what are its advantages, which we have here? So first, it has a flexible schema, meaning that documents do not need identical structures, making updates easier. Next, we have easy replication, synchronizes databases across multiple services automatically. Next, we have high availability, which applications remain available even if one server fails. Next, we have offline support, meaning that applications can continue working offline and sync later. We have open source, meaning that it is free to use with no licensing costs, which is very cost effective for these smaller businesses. Next, it is RESTful API, meaning that it uses standard HTTP requests, making integration with web applications simple. And just want to highlight one thing that I found very important on this slide is that it has applications that remain even if one server fails. So a lot of things where they have all of their information on one page, and basically if the server fails, then they're just messed up for the whole thing. However, with CouchDB, its high availability means that, it always has a backup. Not all is lost whenever one server goes down. However, even with its advantages, everything has some drawbacks, starting with, CouchDB. So first, there is no SQL support, meaning that traditional SQL queries cannot be used. And if someone's more used to SQL queries, with this one being no SQL, they will have to get a little bit used to this new database. Next, it's limited complex queries, meaning that complex joints are not supported like in relational databases, which goes back to what I just said, where if they're not used to it, it's going to just take a little bit to adapt. Next, it's data duplication, and related information is often stored in multiple documents. So they have to go a little bit of places probably to search for a specific type of data that they need. The learning curve, where developers familiar with SQL may need a little bit of time to learn document databases. Next and lastly, it's not ideal for highly relational data, meaning applications with many table relationships may perform better with relational databases. And lastly, here are some of my references that I used. I mainly used 4 different websites, but the one that I used the most of was the first one, which is the APAC Software Foundation, which went into a lot of detail as to what CouchDB is and how it could help different businesses. Other ones that I used were just little smaller ones that were just random searches that just popped up and everything. But just to wrap up, once again, my name is Preston Williams. I went over CouchDB, which is a NoSQL database model. And I hope everybody enjoyed. You guys learned a little something and would consider using this for yourselves, or maybe if you would run across it in the future. Thank you.